Right, item number 3, a decision to review and amend the revenue and financing policy. We have Mr. Alan Menhammond and Mr. Gareth Green to present to us. Thank you, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Worship, I wish to move an amendment to the proposed motion on the agenda paper.
Sure. So we can't accept any amendments at this stage. We'll just deal with the item first, and then we'll ask for questions and go from there. So we can just have the officers present, please, first. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This paper comes to you at your request, at the Council's request. Basically, you have asked officers to provide some information around...
Sorry, Mr. Green, can you talk up a little bit? I think, can everyone hear back there? No. So you just need to talk quite clearly, please, and quite loud.
That's fine, sorry about that. So this information comes at Council's request. We have asked officers to provide some information about the implications or otherwise of changing the rating system from capital value to land value. The paper that you have in front of you goes through the issues that would be associated with such a change. The key points that I want to point out in terms of that is basically a fundamental issue is that to change from capital value to land value would require a long-term plan amendment. That process is outlined in the agenda item, but does require some considerable work in terms of consultation, in terms of having audits done by Audit New Zealand and the like. It does come also at a cost. I guess the couple of key messages though from that is that that at the current time officers believe that the information isn't complete enough to warrant such a change, in that, as you're aware, things such as valuations of the district are occurring and objections at the current time. So we don't actually have a fundamental baseline starting position to consider what the effect of such a change is. Mr. Menhammond soon will go through, based on the current set of facts that we've got, what the change would be as of today. However, we do need to keep in mind that information or the valuations aren't yet finalised. So it does require a long-term plan amendment if we were to entertain a change. There is a very limited time to be able to do that between now and the end of the financial year, which we would need to be able to complete the change by. Officers have a very strong concern that due to that time, we don't believe that we could undertake that long-term plan amendment properly. We believe that there's real capacity and capacity issues for officers and for governance through that period. More importantly, we believe that affected parties to such a change wouldn't be aware of the impacts or implications for them at this stage, and therefore we believe that the consultation that would be undertaken wouldn't be meaningful. And that's mainly because of the point that I raised in terms of the final valuation numbers not yet being out. And not being out until the 18th of December. Because of that, officers believe that there's a significant potential for judicial review if we were to undertake such a change at this stage, due to the process that would have to be undertaken and the lack of consultation and pre-consultation that we would have to undertake as part of that process. And our advice to you is that we consider that we may be found lacking if we were challenged on such a basis. And I'd say there is quite a high likelihood of such a challenge, given the financial figures that Mr. Menhammond will go through, which is around changing shifting the burden from certain sectors to other sectors in the community. To undertake such a change would require you to approve at least $25,000 worth of unbudgeted expenditure. That's primarily for the audit fees from Audit New Zealand, but also for extra advertising and consultation. Another significant risk that we've identified in the paper is we believe that there's a real risk that in doing all of this, we may not have that process complete by the end of the financial year. Obviously, that means that we wouldn't have rates set which would have a significant implication not only on council but on the community generally, and on our reputation in the local government sector. I would say that, to my knowledge, no councils failed to set a rate by the end of the financial year before, and so we would be groundbreakers in the wrong position if we were in that position. I guess finally, I would say before we get on to the financial side of it, a key point is that we can't go and consult on two options in this regard. So we can't go out and say, at this stage as part of the annual plan, we can't go out and say, would you prefer a land value system or would you prefer a capital value system? That's for several reasons. First, again, we haven't got that information in a place where people would be able to understand it at this stage. Secondly, for the annual plan, we need to prepare the annual plan under one basis, and that's a legislative requirement. We need to go out to the community with a basis and then consult on that. So unfortunately, the annual plan is not a referendum. It can't be like a referendum. It's a consultation process on something that we put out as a council out to the community for feedback. So basically, councillors need to choose now which system that they desire. If that decision is to retain the status quo, e.g., stick with capital value, then the annual plan can be prepared, and you've got in your agenda item as an appendix a timetable for that. If the decision was to be taken that you wish to prepare the annual plan on the basis of land value, then the additional steps in that schedule would be required. But as I've stated just before, we as officers recommend that you don't do that because there's some significant challenges associated with that and judicial risk. So I'll hand you over to Alan.
Thank you. A few points I want to make. We're in a different space to where we were 2 years ago. Excuse me. So you can't focus on the impact of the LTP change that occurred then. This is where we are now, and the financial information you've been given shows the effect of a change from today, not from 2 years ago. The financial modelling that we have done is for the 2014-15 financial year and is based on the district revaluation before objections and the 7.5% rate increase as per the LTP. Staff are the only ones with access to this information, so any other financial information being quoted is questionable. Our district has been revalued and we have legal advice that no side agreements can be entered into with individual ratepayers. I draw your attention to page 3/5. In it, it explains that 69% of the district ratepayers would pay more rates in 2014-15 if council changed the rating system from capital value to land value. I think what's important here is looking at the graph on page 3/5, which shows the sectors that would end up paying more, being residential $2.9 million, rural $2.5 million, and rural lifestyle $180,000. And the sectors that have actually paid less if you change to land value, which is your utilities of $765,000, accommodation $325,000, electricity generators of $3.9 million, industrial commercial of $508,000. So what you're seeing there is a shift in the rating liability of over $5 million and loading it from that latter group that I mentioned to residential, rural and rural lifestyle. Excuse me, that's why you are seeing such a high percentage of your ratepayers who will be facing increased rates. If we look at page 3/9, you'll see a summary across the district of all the sectors, and that is the breakdown of that 69%. If we just focus a little bit on the residential, and they're only part of the district, you will see that district-wide, there's 72% of the ratepayers would be paying more under land value. If we drill down even further to Taupo residential, you've got 66%, Turangi 86%, Mangakino 86%. And then the following pages drill it down even further to areas and around the lake. So based on our modelling at this particular stage, there's a strong recommendation from officers that no change is made. The majority of the people are better off under capital value, and that is from where we are today, not where we were 2 years ago.
So, Your Worship, I guess that's it from our presentation. In summary, we believe that that the right decision for Council to make is that no change is made. We believe that avoids cost to Council financially, avoids risk, and as you've just heard, more people are better off than under capital value than land value. I guess just a point, if Council was of a mind to pass a resolution to change from capital value to land value, you would need to come up with some very good reasons, some evidentially based reasons of why you did that. And I say that because, as I say, there is a very real risk of judicial review. So therefore, in that process, one of the things that would be looked at is what was the rationale behind your decision that you took. So therefore, our recommendation is that status quo remains, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Green, and thank you, Mr. Manhannan. Okay, so questions and queries, please. Councillor Body.
We've had the explanation from staff. I'd like to put this resolution forward so we've actually got something concrete to debate.
I won't accept any resolutions at this stage.
Can you show me in standing orders where I say I can't?
Just 1 moment, please. Section 3.10.1. Notice of the motion must be put in writing, signed by the mover, stating that the meeting at which it is proposed that the notice of motion be considered and must be delivered to the Chief Executive at least 5 clear working days before such meeting.
Could I suggest that's incorrect? The reason I dispute what the advice that you've just been given is the fact that we have on our agenda paper 2 resolutions, one to stay as we are and one to depart. If you want that first resolution accepted by this council, you must put it to council. Yep. To say that this is the resolution, a for and against, then I can move my amendment, which I was about to do. Just if you want to formally do that, the CEO is shaking his head, I believe I'm correct.
Councillor Body, there's one resolution that's in item number 3, one only at this stage. Could I just ask for questions or clarifications from the officers of any councillors, please?
I've got a question. I've got some information here in front of me, and it's... Sorry, Your Worship. One of the biggest things, I stood on a platform to at least study capital rates versus land-based rating system for my people. Now, we've been told all the way along that 92% of my district, or our district, Maggie's and I, Councillor Stewart's and I, is going to be better off under capital rates. Well, I've got some information here, which is from Council. Now, it may be a year and a half old, but it shows in the poorest, one of the poorest streets in town, of which there are 4 very poor socio-economic streets, and 70% of them are going to be paying more under capital rates as opposed to being under land-based rates. I'm concerned that the figures we have here in front of us that we've been supplied with, there seems to be mismatches and errors, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't feel comfortable making a decision when I've got figures which don't stack up.
Through the Chair, the information you've got is the information prior to the adoption of the long-term plan. Since then, the district has been revalued, and the information that has been modelled here is the information as at today, not 18 months or 2 years ago. It is robust, and it is, if you do not accept the information that we've given here, there's not much I can do about it. It's been done on a professional and integral method, and it's based on the whole database that sits within our system.
Yes, if I can add to that, Mr. Chairman, the pain that people experienced in 2012, that's the issue that you're bringing up, and that's the information that related to that time. things have changed, and revaluations is a big part of that, but also there are other factors as part of that. So the new figures are the correct figures.
How do we?
Based on the new valuation.
Sorry. Yep. Councillor Cousins.
How do we jiggle them in? How do we come from being 70% in one of the worst streets in town to being what you're saying is now 92% positive?
Because you are dealing with two totally different scenarios.
How, please?
Well, we have got a meeting, for example, in Turangi, which we are attending tomorrow night,
Yes.
about the revaluation of the district and the fact that the values have dropped so dramatically. It is those values that have been fed into this model to come up with a scenario that 86% of the Turangi region will be paying more under land value than they would under the current capital value basis. And 92% of the Turangi township. The information you've got is historical. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, this is where we are today. It is not where we were 2 years ago.
Your Worship, can I direct my question?
Councillor Harvey, sorry, first. Did you have a query? Oh, sorry. Councillor
I'll
Buddy.
direct your question through. I totally dispute some of the information that we've just received from staff. The guts of the issue, a little bit like Councillor Cousins over there, I stood on a platform that I think at least 6 other councillors in this room did, that would look to redress the business of capital value and CV value that has not been done. Hence the reason that I have wished to puts us in that direction. The questions I'd like to dispute with our two staff members are some of the comments that they've made. First, that we can't have one-off agreements with ratepayers. Now, after the last meeting when this was discussed at our workshop, I went back to Local Government New Zealand, and I'll just read out what they've said. The first reply I got from was a Dr. Mike Reid, that was followed up by Athol Stevens. And he was very clear when he said, if you have a property on your roll which is exceptional, i.e. materially different in use, and possibly value from any other property, you may set a differential. Likewise, I believe that properties such as hydro dams could be rated under their own differentials. And he mentions 2 cases that I believe was in the legal information we were given at the workshop. And I thoroughly agree with this. The first thing he states is, in the Woolworths case, where the judge accepted the authority of the council concerned, which I think was Wellington, the council was proven to be correct because it was reasonable. However, when we had the Mackenzie District Council one in regards of Electracorp, the court ruled in favour of Electracorp because it was unreasonable. The second point you made, and just on that basis, I followed that up with looking at Central Otago's District Council, which in fact is on land value like us. When you read the way they strike their general rate there, they have dams. The first thing we look at is the residential rate for funding the general rate in Central Otago. The cents in the dollar is 0.128. There are 3 dams involved. 2 are rated at 6.591 cents in the dollar, 1 at 6.187 cents in the dollar, and the Tiviot Power Scheme in Roxburgh is 11.2 cents in the dollar. You can differentially rate, and I can got some other
Councillor Body, do you mind just getting to the question?
I can't have
are you making a statement? Or?
I am disputing the facts and figures that we can't do things.
Okay.
I'll now move on to...
Thank you.
Through the Chair, can I respond to that, please?
Thank you.
I think there is a misunderstanding here between the concept of differentials in the rating system and the concept of entering into a separate agreement to favour or otherwise any individual ratepayer. What you've referred to there is differentials. We apply differentials under the current rating models. We apply differentials under the land value basis. What the legal opinion that we circulated in, which was legally privileged and in confidence, basically said that you cannot enter into agreements with individual ratepayers. That's totally different to the issue of differentials.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Body?
Well, yes, I do. The second one that we've been throwing at is the fact we live in fear of a judicial review, and the fact that we have a time span to undertake the proceedings that we may wish to follow, when in fact in our agenda item today you've got 2 time scenarios, one starting at the end of January and one starting at the end of February, which would be adequate time because that's a similar time you took with your long-term plan. But on the judicial review, it's to do with procedures. And what it actually states here, councils are beginning to work towards approval of a draft annual plan 1415. If there are sufficient who support land value, the quickest and cheapest way to have land value reinstated is to put to the vote when council approves its draft annual plan for public consultation. Following public consultation submissions, council will then have the opportunity to vote for land value in its final version at its annual plan. Now, very quick last one, Your Honour.
Yep.
Questions have been raised about costs. Well, here's a disc that was circulated some years ago in regards of a development on the green. And I've got a list here of spent money from this council. The university saga, airport saga, the paperclips.
Okay, the question.
Cost of democracy is not an issue.
Thank you, Councillor Boddy. Now, what was the question again?
The first question, or the question there, Your Worship, as I understood it, was the risk of judicial review, and we have provided provided to you in the agenda item a potential time frame if you were to undertake the change. What we're stating there is that we believe that is quite tight, and even in doing that, we still believe that the pre-consultation and consultation process that would normally be expected wouldn't be able to be followed. As an example of that, for the last long-term plan, Your Worship, the pre-consultation process was about 6 months in length. So, and that's what you'd expect for a change of this size in terms of people being able to understand completely the issues at hand and how it may affect them.
Yeah, Councillor Stewart.
It's just thinking about what you just saying, Gareth, about you said earlier that at the moment staff wouldn't have the information for people to go out and see the differences between land and capital value as it stands today. So, and also that in the LTP we have to readdress or look at land value and capital value as a matter of right because when we go into that process. Is that correct?
The issue of land value and capital value is covered in the revenue and financing policy. The revenue and financing policy needs to be reviewed with every long-term plan. So that is due next year anyway, or the next financial year.
Right. So in actual fact, land value and capital value under the financial side will be looked at again in the long-term plan?
Every long-term plan that any council does has to look at its rating system, how it receives its rates, and so yes, that will be part of that discussion as part of the next long-term plan, like every long-term plan that we do. And the difference this year is that we're dealing with an annual plan.
Yes.
So it's a slice of that long-term plan, and essentially what we need to do is go out and consult on an option, and basically it's not an option of land value or capital value, it's options of levels of service and how much the overall rate is, and then the long-term plan is, or an amendment, which we'd be doing in consultation or alongside the annual plan this year, has that discussion.
Right. And you said that if we did it in the annual plan, that staff wouldn't have time for people to actually go in and have a look at the differences that land value and capital value would have on their rates, so they couldn't actually make that an informed decision and know enough about the facts and figures under an annual plan if we went forward with it now.
That's my belief, yes.
Right. My question is, would staff have time to have it done so that it could be looked at in conjunction with the financial side of it in the long-term plan, so that it could be looked at there?
Once the revaluations have been sorted out, which is probably late February, we would then be in a position to come up with a model online for online access or over the counter that could be looked at property by property. Yes.
Thank you. I was just wondering if that would help.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart. Thank you, Mr. Minhan. Councillor Hickling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm really quite concerned about judicial reviews. We have a legal opinion. And with the time frame that has been set, I would like to have the information that if we defer this decision to the review of the long-term plan, which I know it puts it back another year, quite aware of that, but it would give it, hopefully, we would follow the correct process in terms of the Local Government Act. We would go out earlier than normal on a long-term plan so that we do consult properly and give the public plenty of time to submit. And at this stage, with the resolution and the information, I am not prepared to put this council in a position where we are under a judicial review. And I think that the program that is set is too tight, and we would finish up having a judicial review from some sectors of the community that will be disadvantaged. I would like to see that this be deferred and properly dealt with under a long-term plan review, because that's where the financial revenue policy should be dealt with.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hickling. Councillor Johns.
Mr. Hickling has just basically talked about an option as an amendment to this resolution, yet we're not giving Mr. Body airtime to suggest his. But I guess I just wanted to make a statement too. I'm quite disappointed to see a resolution like this that effectively closes down all discussion on this matter. The current paper that we've got from staff supporting this resolution, I would put question to you, Mr. Menhennan, is actually quite unbalanced, because what it is missing for us to make a good governance decision is some form of assessment and recognition of the arguments that want this policy reviewed. The papers that have been put together here are very unbalanced and starts to put us in an untenable position. As far as I'm concerned too, to simply look at one issue is not good governance. And I mean, for example, economists will tell you that LV is a far more efficient tax because it doesn't discourage improvements in economic development. But this isn't even in this paper at all for us to even table and discuss. But what we have here is a resolution that is going to close down this discussion, and I'm very disappointed, and I'd like a response as to why the views in this paper are so unbalanced. Thank you.
Let's put it this way. We came up with the financial implications of a change from capital value to land value. This council asked us to pull together a paper, this was 2 weeks ago, for this particular meeting, which we have. It is up to council whether they are comfortable to shift the liability for rates from one sector to another. And all we are flagging is that if you go down that particular path, this is the risks that you face. And if you look at, touching on what Councillor Hickling was referring to, if you look at adding a liability, further liability of $2.5 million to the rural sector, do you think they're going to sit there on their hands?
Yes, from my perspective, just answering that other question as well, I stand by the summary that we've given in the paper. 3/2 and 3/3, 3/4 all give the two different options and the advantages and disadvantages for them. I guess from officers' perspectives, you'll see that there's only one disadvantage that we see in terms of retaining the status quo. We simply can't see any other disadvantages, and hence my comment earlier that if you were to decide for a change, then you would need to come up with some good reasons for that.
Worship, can I just...
Councillor Harvey?
Yes, I tend to agree with Councillor Hickling's thoughts, and I don't necessarily agree with some of my other fellow councillors. Being a new councillor, I've looked forward to understanding more of the reasons for the changes, and I do now understand more of them, and I don't think the public have had the opportunity to understand them. We've had workshops now over the last few weeks and some really good information. I think that I've studied thoroughly, and I've had further advice from other advisors of my own, so I do understand it a little bit further. I still haven't got my head right round it all, but there certainly is more information to be gained, and I do think I have a more balanced view now. And I think that the public would appreciate that, I think, more as you learn more about it. And there definitely are anomalies there for some of the other sectors with the changes if they were to be made back. So I think there are a lot of areas that you do need to know more about before further changes are made. So I agree with Councillor Hickling that I think more time may be needed to understand that and perhaps look at that further, whether it's however it is. That's my
Thank you,
view.
Councillor Harvey.
Your Worship, through you.
Councillor Boddy.
Could I just respond to the question, for answers from the top table? I had a feeling, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, but I thought the direction that this council was giving to staff was to look at the opportunity for the public to debate this issue as a change to the long-term plan during the annual plan process. Now, it can be done. Northern have just done it in regards to the eroding tax this year, where they changed the long-term plan to have another rate on roading. That was the direction. We're not here sitting in this chamber saying whether we want land value or capital value. We were opening it up to those hundreds and hundreds of people that made submissions 18 months ago. Now, if I'm on that, I apologise, but I don't believe that I am. And I'll also say this business of the judicial review is a white herring. It's already been there. The judicial review is on procedure, not content. So if we STF up the procedure, yes, we could be, but we won't because we've got staff to make sure that we don't.
Any other questions?
I just have one, to both of you. Under the disadvantages that you've stated here in 3(2), you said some members of the community believe that the revenue and financing policy, in particular ratings basis, should be revisited. You've got some members. There's 7 new faces here at council, which probably shows that there was more than some of the population weren't happy with the decision that was made. I firmly believe we need further consultation. Wasn't a question, actually, sorry.
Councillor Hickling.
Just in response to Councillor Boddy's comment, Your Worship, it is about the process that concerns me, and going through the annual plan process, in my honest opinion, is not the correct way to review the financial strategy. And I think the time frame that is set down for us to either approve or not approve is a bit of a pressure cooker situation. We also have to have 2 audit reviews, one on the draft annual plan and the long-term plan. That's out of our control, basically, because we've got to get New Zealand to audit those. And that's why I'm saying that, to me, the correct procedure is through the long-term plan, and I'm aware that it does put it back. But that's where I am.
Thanks, Councillor King. Any other? Councillor Stewart.
That's what I was trying to get at when I was talking before. That is this the right time to do it? With the consultation that we need to have out there so that the figures can be compared properly by everybody and the public, and so that the decision is made with really, really solid information, not with people sort of thinking, well, I don't quite understand, and then resenting decisions. I think it would be far more transparent to have that full information out there, and that can obviously be done in the long-term plan. And I'm just wondering if that can be put in somewhere in a resolution, or does it happen later, or what would be the process?
Mr. Green.
Through Mr. Chairman, the long-term plan will always look at that anyway, because one of the requirements is that in doing a long-term plan is that the revenue and financing policy is assessed and it's reviewed. So that happens every 3 years in any event.
So that will be minuted here now for that to take place. Is that the way?
Just one more question then. Thank you. You said that the staff would have that comparison sort of information that could be available online after February. So would that be the start of the consultation for it to be in the long-term plan?
If you directed that that's what you wanted, then yes, it could be. So the revenue and financing policy will always be reviewed as part of the long-term plan. It has to be. If you want us to undertake a pre-consultation process before that, then Mr. Van Hennett's indicated that we could do that in February next year, or into next year, that could be undertaken, yes.
Right, well, is that an option?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stewart. Any other, Councillor Johns?
I'd just like to put it to my fellow councillors that the whole debate on how this community is charged for its rates and how they pay their bills was up for debate since early 2012 with the last long-term plan. Do we really think that we're going to be in any better position by delaying it further? Frankly, this policy is actually in transition at the moment and is not actually formally adopted, so it is completely feasible to have the discussions now, and let's get some faith in this community and open these discussions now, please.
Councillor Park.
Just following on from Councillor Jollins, I don't necessarily think that hiding behind a judicial review is a white elephant, and I wouldn't even want to find that out for myself. I have thoroughly read the Simpson-Greason legal opinion. I am not a fan and never have been of budgeted expenditure, whether it be in 5 figures or 6. And I am also not interested in squeezing a lot into the time frame that I deem unnecessary. After having 3 years on the former traineum, I think that who listened to everything with an open mind and stood again on that platform. I am also not willing to take on the responsibility of moving liability, of moving rates from one sector to another, and that other being 5.5 million on rural and residential. So I'd therefore like to suggest move the suggested resolution.
So we have a mover for the suggested resolution. Do I have a seconder?
Can I say something too?
Councillor Truman, yes, certainly.
Yeah, I just feel that this whole agenda item is kind of being rushed through, and I do think that it would have been better if a lot more workshops had happened, especially with our new councillors, because we did go through a whole series of workshops, on this issue. Last time we went into the issue with an open mind, and just again looking at this information and the new valuations, I still think we've made the right decision. We're there for the whole community. The system benefits the whole community. I honestly don't see how we could ethically and morally make any other decision than the one we've got. So, yeah, I would like to second the motion.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder.
Which resolution are we looking at, Your Honour? Your Worship?
Suggested resolution, item number 3.
Yes.
Yeah, that the council continues to operate in accordance with its current revenue and financing policy, which uses capital value as the basis for general rate, but we've minuted that Councillor Stewart's wishes and Councillor Hickling's wishes, that for it to be in the long-term plan.
No, that's not the resolution. Don't say that. Do you wish it?
Well, do you want it minuted, or how do we get around that?
Right.
We're going to do that anyway. That's right. Is that right, Mr. Green?
The revenue and financing policy gets reviewed anyway. It would be another decision of council if you wanted to go out for a pre-consultation process that was talked about, with the ability to compare the two systems. That would be an additional process. It would be a pre-consultation process all on its own, and that would be a decision that you would make.
And that's the decision that we should be making, Your Worship, a pre-consultation process, and that would be the correct way.
So to clarify, when would this pre-consultation process start? What year? For what rating year?
The pre-consultation process would be in respect of the 15-16 financial year, but would commence in the early to middle part of 2014.
Right. So we've got a suggested resolution here. Would we call for a slight amendment to that resolution to include that fact?
No, I'm sorry.
As the mover, would you like to move that this resolution?
I'd like to stay with the suggested resolution, and following on from what Councillor Jollins said, that this matter should be dealt with today.
Okay, so we have a mover for the resolution and a seconder for the current resolution as it is. Does anyone else like to speak?
I have an amendment, Your Worship, which I believe I can understand the orders.
Can we move this, do we need to move this resolution first?
No, you can't move that. I'm moving an amendment.
Okay.
But Your Worship might like to see the amendment.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, Your
Yes,
Worship.
if you could read out the amendment. Councillor Body's got an amendment.
Pretty sure the legal people will.
Got your glasses on, John?
Yeah, the new ones.
Is that? Sorry, we just got to clarify that it's acceptable amendment. That's all.
Turn it off then. Does what you can't do, which is
It's not.
just looking at
This is Mr. Rob Goldsberry, the solicitor.
looking at this proposed the proposed amendment. Looking at the proposed amendment, what it seeks, if I read it out, this council directs staff to put in place the necessary actions required with the revenue and finance policy to allow the citizens of Taupo District to choose between the two methods available as to how the general rate will be funded during the annual plan process 14-15. And Councillor Body has said that this is not seeking a referendum. The problem is that that is not something that the council can actually do, because the special consultative procedure or amending the LTP requires the council to put up a positive proposition. Proposition A. You can't legally go out and say, we'll let you choose between A and B. You have to put up one or other proposition. So my advice, Your Worship, is that this is not a resolution, even if it could be accepted as an amendment, which I have my doubts on. It's not something the council can actually resolve to do because it's not legally possible.
Your Worship, I must challenge that. I must challenge that. The debate seems that they have the use of my word choose. I'll go back in history. I believe that what the intent of this council was to take an action that so we would investigate or right the wrongs that happened in the long-term plan. All that this resolution is doing is opening it to the council as a course of action to take place. I can't see why it can't be handled, and in fact, you talk of a judicial challenge, this could be challenged. I believe it's a fair and right amendment to the substantive resolution that's on the council paper.
Okay, any other? The mover of the suggested resolution.
Your Worship, as the mover of the suggested resolution, I'm not willing to accept any.
Point of order, Your Worship. The mover of a resolution cannot debate whether an amendment is satisfactory or not. That person must stay silent until the right of reply.
Okay, we have a mover and a second of the resolution. I intend to...
Before you put the resolution on it, can I, Deputy...
Would you like to skip against it?
It's a fait accompli. Can I give, please, the Deputy Mayor's letter that he handed to me today to read to this council prior to the vote being taken?
Yeah, you can't read it out, but I'm more than happy for you to circulate it. Understanding orders, members shall not read their speeches except with the permission of the chairperson, but may refresh their memory by reference.
It is, Your Worship, it's not my letter, it's the letter of the Deputy Mayor that happens to be in hospital at this time.
Yes, and I appreciate that, but I'm happy for you to circulate it, but I don't, and the members can take a couple of minutes to read it if they'd like to.
So the minutes won't refer that it's my letter, it'll actually have in the minutes that it was circulated, not able to be read.
Can do. Yep. So have you got plenty of copies?
It's a handwritten note from a man who's sick in hospital.
Sick in hospital, who couldn't use his computer to get the message to me. I find it extremely disappointing that you've turned down the Deputy Mayor's opportunity to make comment on this very important issue.
Certainly it can be circulated, Councillor Body, I've just said that. So please get it copied and circulated. More than happy for that. Councillor Hickling.
So Are we allowed to talk to the amended resolution, Your Worship?
To the amended, well, there's no amended resolution. I haven't accepted amended resolution.
Where are we with this?
Well, the suggested resolution is in there at the moment. It's been moved by Councillor Park and seconded by Councillor Truman. As to your particular queries regarding the and Councillor Stewart's and the long-term plan, that I understand it can be minuted, or do with the officers.
Well, I'm not satisfied with it just being minuted.
Okay.
I apologise for that, Your Worship, but I would like to really speak against this resolution that's being put. I actually I'm quite concerned that we're not given the opportunity to discuss the rateable value back into the community. So,
Councillor Hickling, do you suggest? Would you like to suggest an amendment that satisfies your wishes, but it's not?
Councillor Park has said that she's not prepared to accept an amendment.
She has to, nothing to do with it.
You can move an.
You can move an amendment.
You move an amendment with those words included, if you so wish.
I'd have to think about that.
Sure.
Just give me.
I think what we'll do is just have a adjourn for a couple of minutes, if we could.
All right. Well, somebody else might want to speak.
Yeah. I'll get Councillor Bodies or the Councillor Crate's information there. I'd just like to adjourn the meeting for 5. Thanks for indulging us for a 5-minute break. We'd like to restart the meeting where we were. We had a suggested resolution there on the books here, and
I would like to add to that suggested resolution, Your Worship, 2. The consultation 2015-2016 on the LTP commences before the end of the 2014 financial year.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
So that's a new part. So we have part 1 here,
Part 1.
Suggested resolution as it is,
Yep.
and then part 2, a new part 2.
A new part 2.
So it's been moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by, sorry, I didn't get who. Thank you, Councillor Stewart.
Your Worship, point of clarification.
Councillor Body.
Part 1 of the remit or the resolution states that will continue to operate the current revenue and financing policy. If we go to Councillor Hickling's amendment, the second part doesn't indicate what we're getting at. They would do some consultation on long-term plan. There's nothing indicative in that that states we'll be debating the issues that are before us at the moment.
So we'll add that consultation on the the revenue funding policy be undertaken 2015-16 under the LTP to commence before the end of the financial year 2014. Is that?
Okay, is that around? Have you got that? Okay, so
can you just read that back?
Yeah,
please.
Sorry.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Hear that, Maggie? All right.
Councillor Stewart?
Can you just read that again, please?
Just speak in the mic.
Can you just read it again, please?
Can you speak in the mic?
Yep, just give Ariana a minute.
Consultation on the revenue and financing policy 2015 to 16 will LTB commences before the end of the 2014 financial year. Hickling moved and Stewart.
It doesn't need to say something about the rating.
The revenue and financing policy is the rating policy.
Is the rating policy?
Is that right?
No, that's fine then, thank you.
Yeah. So, Councillor Parker is the original mover of the resolution. You're happy with that? A new part 2?
Yeah, that's fine. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's a separate resolution. It's been moved and seconded by somebody else, so it shouldn't be up to me.
So how would you like me to handle it?
Barry needs to get a seconder, and then you can move.
Yeah, he's got a seconder. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move the discussion about that. Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone want to discuss the second resolution?
Part of the resolution.
Part of the resolution. The amended part of the resolution. New part 2. So the original mover of the resolution, we just move it in one?
No. Move effectively the second one first.
Okay.
Move the amendment.
So we move the amendment first. So it was moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye.
Point of clarification is, if we're doing it in that year, it can't be done 1 year earlier, can it? Effectively, we're being told that the staff don't have the resources all the time.
Correct. So could I have a show of hands for that? Yeah. The part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 separate ones.
This is just Councillor Hickling's
Moving the amendment.
Just moving the amendment that's adding to the suggested resolution.
So, Your Worship, effectively the one from Councillor Park
Yes.
was a certain course of action. That was not put and lost.
What
You had an amendment.
What I prefer to do is move a amended resolution that covers part 1, which says what it is, and number 2 as one resolution. Can I not do that?
No, you've got 2 separate resolutions. You've got 2 movers
Okay.
and
Wishes it.
separate.
I need some legal advice on this, Mr. Chairman.
If you wish it to be that way, Councillor, you can move that 1 and 2 as your amended resolution. Then the councillors can vote on that as a resolution, and therefore the initial resolution will rise and fall depending on the first.
Then Councillor Parks have to withdraw
No,
a mover or a seconder?
no, because naturally, if yours is successful, then Councillor Parks becomes redundant.
Then I will move 1 and 2 of the resolution, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hickling, and it's been seconded by Councillor Stewart. So that's 1 and 2.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost.
Oh, yeah, so am I, but anyway.
Now you've got to put it to the meeting.
Yeah, so I'd like to put it to the meeting now that 1 and 2, which is the original resolution, plus the new part 2, has been moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 A show of hands, please, just to make sure. 1, 2, 3. Okay, those against?
Against, and I'd like that recorded in the minutes,
1,
please.
2, 3. Okay, the resolution has been carried. Thank you.
And then how do we deal with the final resolution? It becomes redundant? Becomes redundant.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.